Hello, welcome to the Presence and Practice podcast. I'm here with Toni Daniels, friend, leader, mentor, and I've learned a lot from her. I'll give a little details about you, Toni, and then you can fill in anything I miss. I want to say thank you for being with me and us because I know you're not feeling that great and you're resting, but you're with us. But you still look like energetic and fine. But I'm glad you're here with us on your day of rest and not feeling that top notch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Toni, you are a mom of 4, ages 10 to 30, which is amazing. Married, you've been together for 30 years, but you've been married for 26.
Yeah. Oldest is adopted. Because
That's
people
right.
are going to be wondering.
They're doing the math. Good Christian girl that you are and were. And you and your husband and family were missionaries in Uruguay. Is that how you say it?
Uh-huh.
In South America. And you did some cool things there. Like, can you just share, like, in a sentence or two, what did you do there?
Yeah, I mean, we were sent to start churches in the upper class of Montevideo because the church that does exist in Uruguay didn't feel like they were able to break into the classes society. And so we really felt like we were experimenting on how not to start churches for 18 years. It was the graveyard of missionaries and very difficult place. And we worked mostly with atheists and agnostics. But through that time, we discovered why joy was so important, because that really was key to why people did not even believe in God, because they didn't feel his joy. They didn't know joy as an experience. And once they started understanding it, they started feeling God. So it was really amazing. But we ended up doing some social entrepreneurship, starting some churches, and starting a training center down there.
That's awesome. That's really cool. No, and then, yeah, you invested a big chunk of your life and learned a lot. And then also, I got to know of you because of Life Model Works and people there. And then you wrote a book called Back to Joy: An Intimate Journey into Emotional Health and Maturity. And as a way, I thought of, Toni, you would appreciate this, playing the audio version, a part of it on the podcast, because you're the one reading it, aren't you?
I am.
But I decided against it because I
thought
you wouldn't like to hear your own voice because that's something people don't like to hear.
That would be funny, but I mean, whatever.
So actually, I really like that book because it's your journey and into joy
during those times, right? So during those 18 years, really, of me finding joy in the middle of all of that, through the memories and trauma that I had suffered growing up. So yeah,
so that was my first introduction of you, and then got to know in a different on-ramp, Luke 10 ministry. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then got to know John White indirectly, and my wife met him. And then I was put on a leader team with you at Luke 10, and which I love.
Put on a leader team. I snatched you up so fast, nobody even knew you were around.
And I love it.
It was a blessing for me to meet you. I could not believe that I was having that honor. So I totally, of course, had known about your book and had practiced Joyful Journey and all that's in there for many years. So yeah, it was mutual.
And then it's been great. I don't even know how long it's been. It seems like close to 2 years, maybe not quite, but something like that. But it's been like so rich, and it's almost like perfect for this time that we're in, with this kind of like being at home on Zoom too much, but it's a very strategic way of connecting with God and with one another that builds joy, and we hear God together personally and just sense his guidance. And it's been really fun and just a joy to be a part of. And I've transferred what I've learned from you in Luke 10 into small group at church. And so it's been awesome.
Great. And literally right now with COVID-19, we have so many pastors coming to us asking for training in how to continue making disciples, not just broadcasting a service, but making disciples in an online platform. So it's exciting. The times are really changing things and helping people be more open to different ways of being together.
Yeah. And so thank you. Thank you. It's really very simple. And that's the beauty of it. And then even Sangshim and I, if we've had like a, whatever, hard day, a long day, but we're kind of the facilitators, it's a very easy yoke and a light burden just to engage with people who want to be there. And so we just show up, and then we have more energy and more joy because the joy is there.
Yeah, you get to be one of the crowd and Jesus gets to lead.
Seriously, I hope that just gives a little taste so people can like, what are they talking about? Because it really is so simple. It's like the science of joy and staying connected in community with Jesus at the center. So, and okay, we'll weave those things in, but you are one of the authors of a new book, which is fantastic. And you even kind of gave me some of the writing this summer when I was on vacation, which I really appreciate. So the title of the book is Joy Fueled. Can you give me the whole title? I don't want to.
Joy Fueled, Catalyzing a Revolution of Joyful Communities.
Love it. It's been out for a couple of weeks. Is that right? A month already.
5 weeks, actually.
Oh my gosh. Yes, right around when all this started. And I spread it, I shared it with friends, family, other leaders. And so I hope it's getting out there, because I really think the ideas in it are simple, helpful ways of doing it. But can you just share a little bit about, okay, who your other authors are, who I know John a little bit, but I don't know Ken indirectly. But just share about them. Why did you write it? What are the, and we'll get into it, but just you start.
Yeah. So John White and Dr. Kent Smith are both co-founders of Luke 10, of the community Luke 10, which is a training organization principally. We train leaders globally to be church and to learn how to train others to be church. So John and Kent are my co-workers. We meet every single week to do resource development and experiments really with how to do community and how to be community together. So beautiful team that we form, although we're all very, very, very different. So anyone who knows us knows, wow, how do y'all work together? That's the first thing they ask is, how do y'all do this? Because we're really different. So we enjoyed writing together. And the book really came about because we felt led to focus our clarity for our organization. Our organization started growing and we realized, we don't have our values very clearly stated. We had like 19, which is impossible, really. And so we got together over 3 days with my husband as an organizational development person working with us to hone those down to 5 core values that expressed who we are as a community, not who we want to be, but really who we are. And so Joy Fueled was the first of those values. And coming out of that time, we really felt like, we need to write this down. We need to get clear for our leader teams, for the people we train, what we mean when we say joy fueled. And we wanted to give them words for the experience that they already had to make it a holistic experience, right? A lot of churches give a lot of words and they don't give you the experience.
Right.
And in our training communities, we realize we give a lot of experience and not a whole lot of words. So this is an attempt to bring the words into the experience and to give people something to hand to people who go, what's Luke 10? Who are you guys? They can hand this and say, well, this is a little bit of who we are. We're joy fueled.
That's the power of a book, is you distill what you've experienced into like a distilled way that people can, if they're interested, if their heart is drawn to it, they can get some traction on it, and then they can attach to people who can share the experience.
Exactly. So that's what we're finding. And it seems like it's really hitting the target. I see people coming into our intro calls every day, and most of them have read some of the book already. So it's really odd. Like, wow.
That's a new experience for you.
Totally new. So I'm glad that it's serving the purpose that we wrote it for. We also wrote it for the church in all of her forms, because 65 million people right now have walked away from conventional church or institutional church. And we know a lot of pastors are concerned about that, right? And they want to know, why are these people leaving and how can we step in to help that happen? So, or help that not happen, what do they need? So this book is also for pastors, church leaders who are contemplating that phenomenon that's happening.
What to do about it. Yeah, and then you have people, I mean, even on our leader team from literally all over the world. I mean, a lot of ours are from the US. I mean, the Midwest, Northwest, I'm Southwest, you know, you're on the East, but then we have someone from New Zealand. So it's like that, and bless her heart, she gets up at like 4 a.m, which I would not do. So God bless her. So, um, but that's how it is. That's crazy. And my heart is really to see how we can do that in the local area. It's different now, so we'll see how it goes. But that's what the point is. We have different hearts and open to what people want to experience, and with the simplicity of this. So can you share? Because you said 5 values, and I'm sure people are like, "What are the 5 values?" You said the first one, but I love that you guys did. I loved all 19 I remember I did. I printed it out and brought it to, we went on vacation with some friends like a couple of years ago, and I'm like, guys, look at this. This is fantastic. And they're like, yeah, John, that's good. They liked it. But people, I have a wide capacity to deal with 19 values.
Yeah, right. You are unique because I didn't.
No, that's more like everybody. So
totally, we formed them into a sentence, which is kind of funny. But this is it. We feel like we're a joy-fueled, Jesus-led community of practice. So those are 3 of the values: that we're joy-fueled, we're Jesus-led, and that we are a community of practice.
Right.
People meeting regularly to practice habits that lead us into godliness and into relationship, healthy relationship. So joy-fueled, Jesus-led community of practice, equipping spiritual moms and dads to nurture ecosystems of grace. So the concept of being a spiritual mom and dad is the other value, and nurture and equipping spiritual moms and dads, and then nurturing ecosystems of grace, which Dr. Smith coined that term. And really, an ecosystem of grace is everyone in the body using their gifts and functioning, you know, as a fluid ecosystem. So I know it sounds funny, and it was for me when I first heard it, but it's quite the catchphrase now. Everyone in our organization uses ecosystem of grace. My children even, which is really funny. They're studying ecosystems out in the backyard right now. So anyway.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, no. So those are the 5. I love them, and you know, it's interesting. Like, I'm drawn to, I mean, they're all great and they all work together, but I'm drawn to one in particular, and that it's the community of practice, because I think that's, I mean, even when I say this, that's the missing piece that I've seen in churches across that I've been a part of and see and speak at. But of course, Jesus led too. Then I'm like, oh yeah, but what about Jesus led? You know, like experiential, community, discerned way, and so joy filled. So I can't leave any out, but my heart is drawn to community practice, which is what keeps me in the leader team, because it's not just one person teaching, even if it's good teaching. It's we are actually becoming a kind of person in this being together. And that's how we really change and are transformed. So I think that's why I'm drawn to it so much. And
beautiful.
So tell me, like, you wrote it together, and this is basically about joy fueled. And define joy? This is how you use it.
Okay. So yeah, so in the book, we do define joy. We also define other fuel sources, as we talk about, or other sources of motivation that we use that aren't as effective as joy, like duty and obligation, and guilt. I mean, I used to guilt myself to do all kinds of things the first half of my life, right? I think most of us use guilt to get a lot of things done. But unfortunately, that fuel deteriorates. It even erodes us from the inside out when we're using it, and it won't last the long haul. It won't take us to the end, right? We will burn out, as we talk about in ministry or in anything that we're doing, whether it's sports or anything else. And so joy is a totally different concept of fuel, right? And it is the Thrive definition, or the Life Model Works definition of someone being glad to be with me no matter what, no matter how I feel, no matter what I've done, no matter how they feel, no matter what they've done. We can be glad to be with each other no matter what. And it's this very sticky love, as Chris talks about. This is said, the sticky love. And if we can really weaponize that as a fuel, as what my husband says, but really grow that, focus intentionally on helping ourselves and our communities grow joy together, then we're going to move towards maturity, and we're going to have a resilience about us as the people of God that is incomparable in other circles.
So you're saying joy is the sense, which, we've heard before, that someone's glad to be with me no matter what. So can I ask you, I wrote a book with other people. It has its joys and challenges or concerns. How did you guys experience, I'm sure you didn't always show up and you're like, hey, I'm ready to get to work and let's do it. How did you guys do that? Like, how did you participate in joy when you're like, I'm not productive, I'm in a bad mood, or whatever it was for you?
Well, it was a fascinating experience. We meet weekly to oversee Luke 10, right? And so every week when we meet, we practice the practices of Luke 10, which are checking in with each other. How are you feeling? So we would share our feelings. And then we also share appreciation at the beginning of every single meeting that we have, and specifically 4+ appreciation stories, or it's a story where you're sharing an appreciation memory, not just I'm thankful for, but I'm entering into the memory. I'm sharing body sensations. I know your listeners know all of this probably, and I'm sharing my feelings. And so we always begin with appreciation, and then we move into the work of the day. And sometimes, most of the time, we listen about what that work is to be. So grounding everything we do in that format really, again, helps soul care and mission be two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
And that's talked about in the book, how for us, you can't separate this concept of soul care or pastoral care from mission and getting the job done and focused and intentionality, right? That for us, mission will flow out of this abundance of joy of being together in our pain, in our sorrow, in our mad, angry at each other, right? In those moments, then it just works a lot easier. And so we had moments of conflict, right? You know that when you write with someone, and that happened with us too, many times. But because of the trust that we have already formed as a team together, we know we have each other's back. We know that everyone's trying to make each other a better writer. In our paramount objections, not to thwart someone or stop them, right? But to really make it better. So I think those things were difficult moments, but being housed in the rhythms that we have, it made it beautiful. And we practiced what we were writing about over and over and over.
Thank God for the rhythms that existed before writing the book, because that's the beauty of this. And so I love the story, because I think that's like it. I know you, and I know that you're living this out, but people don't know. You could just have written a book together, but I know you practiced it. I know you encountered real life, like tension and struggles, and you did it. But I like even what you said. So for let's call it a business meeting for the organization. The standing way you do it is you check in heart to heart, and you share an appreciation moment, which has a full thing. That's how you start every business meeting.
Yeah. And a lot of people think, wow, that would waste so much time. We would never get anything done, right? And some days feel that way, because we spend most of our time just doing that, and then we have like 10 minutes left to like work, quote work, and we'll walk away and think, wow, that wasn't very productive. But then we look back on a month and we see everything that God's done in our organization in a month, and we go, wow, when did that happen? Because we feel like we're spending so much time keeping the relationships and keeping each other joy-fueled, but it's just amazing what mission flows out of that.
Yeah, well, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that that's just the standing way you do a business meeting. And that's beautiful. And I know the fruit of it too. And sometimes I actually wouldn't do it. And then you get the effects of it. Like, yes, you can get a little bit more done in the short time, but then the relational drift, then that creates a lot of friction. I mean, not even just relational friction, but just like it's less efficient is kind of what I'm trying to say. Like staying relationally connected is the most efficient way forward.
Yeah, it really is. And the other employees that we have with our organization, we'll be the first to tell you, they've never worked for an organization that cares about their feelings. And we do get a lot done. So it is amazing how that works. But yeah, when there's high trust and high joy, people people tend to be able to do a lot more work.
Yeah. And so the talk about the motivations, different motivation systems that we personally have, we as organizations have, guilt, fear. I don't know what some of the other ones that you had said earlier, but I'm well aware there's for myself. Oh, as a parent, as a husband, as a leader, I understand those. And so, but there is another way. We can do it through joy. And
There is. And the one thing I hear that's really funny, even people reading this, adults reading this, going through our training right now, is they say, so I understand now what guilt and duty and obligation look like, what that fuel looks like. And they said, but once I remove that fuel, how am I ever going to do anything?
yes.
Like, they're scared that they'll never have another fuel, like that if that fuel's gone, they're just going to be empty and lay in bed all day. Like, they'll never be able to get anything done if they can't use those fuels, because joy is so foreign to them, that fueling themselves with that is so foreign. So that's in the book as well. We get to three really key practices that you can practice with your community to help build that joy, right? There's a ton of ways to do it, but we give 3 practical ways.
And those 3 practices, so I want to kind of joke and say they take a really long time and they're hard to learn, right? No. So can you name
so easy, right? They're so easy.
They're so easy. Can you name the practices, and then let's figure out which ones we want to kind of draw out a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I hate talking about them. I'm just going to say, because when we talk about them, a lot of times people don't get it. It's weird. It's such
totally
a experiential thing, right? That we talk about it and they hear it and they're like, oh, I'm not interested in that. That sounds stupid or whatever, right? So I just want to preface it with.
Oh, no, Toni, let's spend a minute on that, because I'm with you too. Because if you say checking in, it's like, oh yeah, I've checked in. You just share I'm upset today, or I had a great day, and then you're done. But the way in which you do it and we do it is qualitatively different. And so I understand the risk that we take in just sharing it with words is
exactly
a check off saying, oh, I've done that. It's not that effective. There are some people who like that, but it's not me, right?
The other thing people do is they add it on a list of, oh, that's a good thing to do, right? But just like high lows at dinner time. And I mean, there's so many things that families do that can be beneficial, right? And we're trying to say, you know what, if you only had 2 things to do or 3 things to do, period, ever, in every single relationship, whether it's your family, your children, your spouse, your church, your business. Like, if you had to take everything down to just 3 things, what would be the most powerful 3 things you could do to grow pretty much 11 to 12 of the 19 relational brain skills in 15 minutes, if you only have 15 minutes. So this is how important we see these specific practices if they're taken intentionally like that. And again, the other thing I get from people is, oh God, this feels so structured. Like, I want real life. This is structured. And I kind of giggle and I say, you know what, anyone who wants to play a game well, or play an instrument well, a piano, right? Or play football or baseball well, they're going to have to go into a structured practice to be able to learn the skills they need to then get out and play a spontaneous game, right?
Absolutely.
If they don't have those skills, they can't play spontaneously. And what I find is so many people in the church want to play the game of life spontaneously without training and learning skill to do so. And what that means is people get hurt all the time and no one really goes deep.
Absolutely. And I love, my daughter both my kids are into soccer. So I love the soccer practice metaphor. Yeah, they go do like a drill for like 10, 15 minutes. It's very precise and it's small. But then that enables them to cross or do a pass or shoot. And then they are spontaneous. But the practice, and it feels structured because it's a foreign or it's a new awkward thing that we haven't done before. So we're creating a new habit. So I totally resonate with that. And then the other almost response I have back to that is, if we do not have structures or rhythms of attention, as you mentioned in the book, that support fruit, what happens is the drift is just to the person who is the most reactive or the loudest or the most powerful. And they may or may not use that power well, but it just goes to, it's either the structure or the person who will freely use their power.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is a concern, because how do we build a community, a body of Christ? And I think the structure it's simple enough, it's loose enough, it's wide enough to be you.
Yeah. So
So
the first thing that we do intentionally to practice, right, is what we call the check-in, like you said, and it is very simple. Most people probably do this. They just might not hone it as a practice and build the skill. But we share our emotions with each other, which I know sounds very weird, but very biblical, because David definitely shared his emotions with his own heart, with God, with others freely through his writing. And so we do it, and we try to train people to be able to check in with themselves and discern their emotions, and then be able to communicate that within 2 minutes. So it is very hard, because a lot of people have never thought about how they feel. They don't take time to put that into words. And so this simple practice of doing it every single day, as close to daily as possible with one other person, trains someone then to know what they're feeling, right? To be self-aware of what they're feeling, and to be able to express that to someone else. Which, if you're doing it in that intentional training space, you could see how in all of life then that would be very useful when I'm in any relationship, to know what I'm feeling, to be able to express that clearly in a short period of time, so that I'm not overwhelming someone else, right?
Toni, the
So
way I've seen you do that is you've led our group is you'll even sometimes set a timer. And if we were well practiced, you may not. But even when you set the timer, the thing that I really like is because you're like, it rings. And then if I'm sharing or someone's sharing, you're like, okay, just go finish your thought. And it may even take 30 seconds or a whole nother minute, 50% of the time. It's just training. It's not like perfectionism, heavy-handed response. So it's just like, can we develop that skill? And at first we can't, because maybe realistically, when you share, people usually just talk on. And then there's some people who are brief, but that's the point that I wanted to highlight in the way that you do it. And I think that's how the whole organization does it, is this is just training. And if you go over, fine, just finish. Like, we're here.
yeah.
Like, the most important thing is to hear you out. So I love that about how you do it.
Thank you. And so just an example of the fruit of this type of training, right? So we've been training our son, who's 10, in this since he was 2, right? So he's been sharing his feelings since he was 2, and now he's 10. And just last night at dinner, we sit down to dinner, and he says, I need to check in. And we said, okay. And he said, I feel like I am carrying everyone else's emotions. This is a 10-year-old. I feel like I'm carrying everyone else's emotions, and they're all really heavy and sad. And I don't know how to discern which emotions are mine and which are everyone else's. And I've been asking God to take away everyone else's, so that I could just feel my feelings. This is a 10-year-old, and we're all sitting at the table. And my husband just yesterday had mentioned to me, I think Matt's carrying the weight of everyone on him. So like, my husband was noticing it, right, but didn't say anything. And my son realized it himself and was able to verbalize it in less than 2 minutes in such an articulate way that, my 19-year-old was like, wow, I think I'm doing that too. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
She's like, wow.
The beauty of being
that's real life, right?
Yes.
That's the game. And you want to be that skilled in the game of real life to be able to stay heart to heart connected, even in the middle of COVID-19 with 7 people in my house.
Amazing. Bless you. Bless everyone. That's amazing. So the checking in is, and I could imagine people are like stuck on 2 minutes. That's just that's just a goal. That's a target. If it
Totally. We're never sticklers, right?
No.
That whole river of integration where you get chaos on one side and rigidity on the other, and you need a little structure and then a little chaos combined to really get a flow going. So we have the structures in place to provide just enough structure, but not too much. If you get too much structure, it kind of kills it all.
And you know what I did with, we had a small group at church that's just, we're facilitating, and we did these things. And the first 2 times, I didn't have any time. I just let them do it. And Sangshim and I modeled it. So they saw that. And then we did it twice. And then the 3rd time I said, okay, I'm going to just time it, but I want you to be, free. And so we're moving in that direction. So that's just another way of doing it with a small group that's not a part of Luke 10, but who I am is connected to that. And so just, I want people to be free, because the point is, can we share succinctly so the whole body of people who are gathered in that small gathering can share? Because some people are more free to share and some people are more reserved, right?
Yeah.
So,
And when you explain, I'm just doing this so that everyone has a
yeah.
chance to share. People are more likely to be considerate. I never time my family. When we're 5 people around dinner table, we don't time each other.
No need.
Although the small children will say, "Mom, I think you've gone a lot longer than 2 minutes." They're fantastic.
I love them. Way to
Especially for the
go.
adults to keep it to 2 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we'll go on to the second one, but I'm almost thinking like, oh, should we just share 2 and then they have to buy the book to get the third one, or is that too mean?
Totally.
Oh, or part 2. So go ahead. So yeah, that's check-in.
Right. And it could look like this. So today I'm checking in as sad, thankful, and tender. So I'm sad because my oldest is actually moving to Baltimore next week. And that is super, super sad to me. And so, yeah, I don't know when I'll get to see her physically again because of all of the COVID and everything. I'm really thankful to be on this call with you and to get to see you today. I love hanging out with you and love the book and love John and Kent and just the ability to work with them. So really appreciative of this beautiful opportunity that I get to work with them. And just really tender for people struggling during this time. And I think it's amazing that God scheduled the release of the book during COVID-19. I had no idea, right? We were supposed to launch it in November and then decided to wait and, had no idea. So just tender for people. And I'm hoping that this will encourage them a little bit and help churches as well know how best to support their communities during this time. I'm in.
Yeah.
So that's a check-in example. I just had to model because that's what we do, right? We practice and model. So
thank you, Toni. Yeah, no, I'm so glad you did do that because that's really like, besides the experience, modeling is the next thing that really transfers that way of life. And even as I say that, I think that's what Christians were known as people of the way. It's not just like they believe the right 3 things and then they're going to heaven. It's actually they had a quality of life that they were known by. And you modeled it. And then even you and I practiced this for many times, even together in a group. Even we did a little check-in and appreciation before this call because we both had our things that were on our heart. And that was so good. Like it kind of shifted our state of being.
Yeah. And I do have to say that part of the check-in is the listener who is listening without the desire to change or fix. You're not going to jump in and fix my sadness for me. You don't need to make my sadness go away. You're not going to make a joke to try to make me feel better. Like you can just be with me in sadness and be glad to be with me. Yeah. So that's the joy piece, right? So that's how we're practicing joy together, is practicing that. I'm not going to fix her. I'm not going to make her sadness go away. I'm not going to try to tell her what to do, right? I'm just going to be glad to be with her. And that's really hard for a lot of believers, believe it or not.
Well, because we've been trained that is what is helpful. By family, by church, by like it's well-meaning, good intention to alleviate your suffering by making you laugh, which is something that I would do, instead of just merely being with you. And we're all figuring it out. But the goal is not to come and rescue, it's just to be with, which is how we actually suffer through things without it becoming traumatic, is there is a compassionate presence of just seeing, oh, Toni's sad about her daughter moving, and oh, I get that. I see that, and because you love your daughter so much, that makes sense. Yeah, simple. And so we're learning a way of life that it's not complicated, but we have habits that are deeply entrenched that letting go of is actually the challenge. Yeah. So it's beautiful.
And I think we can stop there. As far as like the steps, because that really is the key one. The other things we share about is how to do that with yourself. How to check in with yourself and what does that look like? And that might be a really new concept for a lot of people. And John does a fantastic job going into kind of the biblical basis for speaking to yourself, or being in contact with different parts of you or different facets of you that feel differently, because, there might be a part of me that feels really angry at a situation, but then another part of me that feels very sad about a situation. And then maybe another part of me that feels guilty, like maybe I caused this, right? So we are very multifaceted as humans. And so a beautiful chapter in there as well on how do we build joy on the inside with God and with ourselves, and how do we learn to be with ourselves and be glad to be with all parts of, all of the emotions going on inside of ourselves, because that's a piece I think that's been missing in the church, that if we can't be glad to be with us when we're feeling guilty or shamed or angry, then we really can't offer that presence to other people either.
Yeah, that's true. What is in our heart flows to others. And so that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what's your, well, the other one was, can you just comment on the feeling appreciation? Because I think that Jim Wilder has a great short blog post on creating a new normal, which is the simplicity of just creating that like island of peace or appreciation. And so can you just comment a little bit about that? Because I want people to even have their appetite whet so that they can yearn for it.
Yeah, totally. We, I think in the church, we border on this a lot when we talk about Thanksgiving, right? Yeah. And we tell people to make a list, make a list of what you're thankful for. And I totally appreciate that. And I don't want to act like it's not valuable. That 100 gifts, I think, was it 100 gifts, 1,000 gifts? Yeah, it was life-changing for me. Yeah. Her book, I can't remember her name, but that book was life-changing for me. And I so appreciate that whole movement. So I'm not trying to say anything bad against that movement when I say this. But moving from making a list and saying I'm thankful for things is very different than actually feeling appreciation for them. Because that, verbally saying, thank you, God, for this tree. Thank you for water today. Thank you. That's a very one-sided brained thing where I'm doing that out of the intellectual side of my brain, right? Whereas, when I get into how it makes me feel that I have water, how does it make me feel that I get to look at these trees? Then I'm incorporating the other part of my brain or my heart, and some people would talk about their brain and their heart. And God wants us to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our mind, all of our strength. So it's a very holistic experience when we enter into the presence of God. Or do anything, it should be a holistic experience. And so when we enter into appreciation, for us, it's a memory. It really is a memory or a moment that we capture. And someone said to me the other day, I think I like to define it as it was a good moment to be alive. I thought that's really nice because we're trying to get it. How do you define this, right? And for me, I say it's one of these moments where you're just like in awe, or you're just like, wow, or it's overwhelming because you're speechless because it's so beautiful, right? Or it's just a moment when you're fully present. That's another way of explaining it. I became fully present, and I was thankful. I was appreciative of something. But I loved that. It was a good moment to be alive.
I like that too.
I like that a lot. Yes. Really, really, and a lot of people take it to spiritual places all the time, and you can, but you don't have to. For me, one of my most favorite appreciation stories was when my son was 3 years old, and we were walking into the mall, and he put his little hand in my hand, and I could feel just his little bitty fingers, pudgy, fingers in my hand. And in that moment, I was present. A lot of moments I would just not even notice his hand, right? But that moment I was present, felt his little chubby fingers in my hand, and immediately thought, this hand will never be this size again. It's going to grow every day, and it will never be this size. And I started to cry. I mean, just immediately, because I was so thankful for that little bitty pudgy hand. And he looked at me and he was like, Mama. And I looked at him, and we just connected with this lightning joy, right? Eye-to-eye connection. And then he starts jumping up and down because it's so much that he's so happy to be with me that we skip and hop into the mall. And I remember people looking at us like, what in the world? Like, what are they excited about?
Oh my gosh, that is a beautiful, beautiful memory. I love it.
Yeah. And I just felt so thankful for being his mommy, you know, but so in awe of the moment, right? So it can be something that's simple that
Yeah.
blows your mind, you know, and then it can be something that's simple that wasn't even impactful in the moment, but as you remember it, it impacts you that way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's our appreciation stories, and what they do for us is they rewire our entire brain to look for more moments like that. They
Yeah.
give us resilience, and they help us actually connect to God even in the middle of trauma.
Yep.
So very powerful to practice.
It is. And even when, and I'm sure you guys have known this too, but it's Sungshim and I study the brain science of this, like Porges and van der Kolk and all these, that it's neuroception is like our ability to detect, and then interoception is detect what's going on inside of us. And the more, it's a very unusual skill that most of us haven't practiced, but it's something we can grow in. And if we can, oh, I notice my shoulders relax, my breathing is more full, my heart is warm. Those are actually really vital, and it is a sign of mental health. So these simple skills and practices that we engage in actually move us towards integration, mental health, emotional, spiritual health. We can connect with ourselves, connect with God, connect with those people who are around us. So that's why I love the work that you are a part of, that you are doing, and I learn from you all the time. So it's been fantastic.
It's mutual. Thank you so much for having me today.
What's your, where should people go? I mean, like, I know the book is on Amazon, and then the website.
Yep. Books on Amazon. Website's easy. It's lk10.com. So not too complicated.
Nope.
Very easy. And, you know, we have every Monday, I'm doing something called Community in Quarantine, and that will be up on the website soon. It's on our Facebook pages right now, and it's just an hour and a half, lightning Church 101 course, really in an hour and a half, for pastors, small group leaders, professional Christians who are trying to figure out, what do I do with my community right now during this?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm offering that weekly for now during COVID-19. And so if you know any pastors that are interested in trying to learn these rhythms in a quicker way so that they can then listen around how to transform their communities into more joyful communities. That's happening on Mondays, and I can send you the link to that as well.
Yeah, please do. That's awesome. So I love what you guys are doing, and just you and your family. So thank you so much for being with me. It's been really good. So
thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
God bless you, Toni.
You too.